That is She Feels Good in My Hands. That is our friends, the Rose City Rockers from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. That's their second video. They've got a couple more videos coming out and a couple more tracks. Those songs are charting like number 3, number 4 right now. They're doing great on radio. They're getting a ton of radio play, a lot of requests for plays, and a lot of requests for new tracks. That is Jimmy Graham and our friends at Rose City Rockers. Well, tonight we got a whole bunch of stuff I want to talk about. We're going to talk about production. We had Phil Anderson on a little while ago. Phil is a renowned producer. Well, this guy is just as renowned. He is well known in this area. He's well known in a lot of places, and I think he's won a bunch of awards for his mixing, mastering, and his magic touches and all that wizardry that he does on everybody's recorded music at Charterhouse Studios. We got Aaron Murray in the house tonight. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, how's it going?
How's it going, buddy?
It's going. It's going.
It's so great to have you on the show tonight. We were gabbing before the show, and you were talking about, uh, all the hats you have to wear doing what you do, and sometimes feeling like a one-armed paper hanger.
Yeah, there's a lot of hats. There's like we're kind of talking about too. It's like being you're being an engineer, but you're also tech support. You're also a therapist. You're all the things, and that's part of the gig. You just kind of go with it and make it happen.
And it's a job that really forces you to multitask. I mean, you have to you've got a lot of balls in the air at one time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, the juggling is constant.
Yeah, I mean, I always have the fear of dropping.
It happens. It happens, but you just, you keep going. Like, you don't really have a choice a lot of the time. You just keep plugging away and make it happen. So
yeah, it was really funny because we just recently had a really successful release with Brother Leeds, and we were coming up on their vinyl release party on June the 8th, and I get a message from Steve. He's like, "Did we pick a release date on the digital album?" And I'm like, "Nope." No, we didn't, because we were so busy with the waterfall release. It was an aggressive waterfall release. We released one track every 2 weeks.
Right.
So, I mean, I'm busy every time we're releasing a track, because you can't pitch the next track until within 2 weeks of the go live date on it. And normally I don't publish anything unless it's a 4-week interval.
Right.
Because it takes 4 weeks. Number one, it takes 4 weeks from the time you publish until your music can hit every single platform.
Right.
And so, like, we're publishing to 165 different platforms now.
Right. Yeah.
So you can imagine it takes 4 weeks to get it out to all those places.
Yeah.
And that's the only way they can guarantee that it will be everywhere. You got to have 4 weeks.
Yeah.
But during that 4 weeks, you get a lot of extra time to pitch the track.
For sure. Oh, yeah. That's the one detail so many artists overlook. And, it's like, when's this coming out? Well, next Tuesday? It's like,
yeah.
No.
That's
not how this works.
I even got to the point where I was saying to people, I don't really want to release anything for you till you have at least 1,000 followers on social media.
Mm-hmm.
Because we need something to help, your track breathe air.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Like, you gotta, exactly. You want to, like, obviously every independent band we want to get a manager, we want to get an agent, we want to get this and that. And it's like, well, what do you have to manage at this point? Like, there's not enough there. Like, when you get to the point that you need a manager will find you. Right? Like, that's generally, I always tell people, hey, do you know any good managers? It's like, why? Like, what do you, like, so.
You're also a musician.
I am, yeah.
And if I said the name Bob Noxious, tell us about that affiliation for you.
Well, I've worked on every Bob record but the very first Bob record. my name's not on the Christmas record, and I still never let Bob let that one down. But yeah, I've worked with Bob on, well, from the Ho 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 Christmas record on, and in the studio, and as the assistant originally, and then I'm trying to remember who was the, I always forget. Yeah, I think it was Superstar. I get a call when I was originally working for Dan Brodbeck at EMAC, and I got a call from Dan. Hey, Bob's got a new record, and Bob used to have these hard disk machines, 8-track hard disk machines, and recorded everything himself in his shack. So hey, Bob's got a new record ready to go. Can you dump it all into Pro Tools, get it all ready to go? Blah blah blah. So yeah, no problem. And then I get, Bob comes by and he's, yeah, this is, I think, first week of May. We got the CD release party is like mid June, and I'm starting to do the math, and I'm like, CD release parties in like 6 weeks. This is recorded, and at the time, Dolores O'Riordan of the Cranberries was in town working with Dan. So I was like, when is Dan gonna mix this? And Bob, I'm like, when's this going to happen? Because I know Dan's really busy. And he's like, well, can you mix it? And I was like, well, hey, man, I'm Dan's assistant. I'm not poaching, going to poach a gig from him. So I called him. He's like, hey, man, just you do it. You do it. And
Right.
from then on, I kind of branched out and just started, mixing it all myself, and not, putting in little production ideas. Hey, man, it'd be really great if there was like a, hey, or a gang vocal thing here,
Right.
little bits. And our relationship grew from there. And then it was during the making of EOA where I was mixing it. And the same
Right.
thing, like, hey man, the record release party's in 6 weeks and blah blah blah. I'm scrambling to get it all mixed and finished. And that's when Jeffy B left the band. So I got a call from Bob. Hey man, we want you to join the band and just be in the band. And I was like, dude, I'm scrambling to get this done in time, let alone try to learn, like a decade plus worth of music for a release and whatever. So there was another guy that stepped in and kind of took over right out of the gate, and then gave me some time to sit back and kind of like, go through the material and learn stuff. And then,
Catch your breath.
yeah, we kind of transitioned out over the course of about a year ish.
Right. So are you playing live with the guys too?
Oh yeah, I've been playing full time with Bob since I think yeah, EUA was in 14, so it was like kind of 14 to 15 was kind of that
Right.
transition period. So basically 10 years I've been playing
Right
full
on.
time with the band. So
Shane Sawyer says, "Hey boys."
hey Shane.
Uh, Shane's up in Walkerton, Ontario. Dean Boharnish is from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Says, "Good evening to all on this fine summer breeze night."
Indeed.
Well, maybe you're a little ahead of us. We haven't really seen. I mean, today was like one of the first kind of days of summer.
Yeah, but I think it was breezy because
Oh,
all of a sudden I got a message from the lady going, "Where's the umbrella?" And I guess I popped the umbrella up when I ate my lunch, or I had breakfast outside this morning because it was nice, and I left the umbrella up on the patio, and I guess the
uh
wind came, and it all of a sudden it was on the lawn somewhere. I was like, "Oops!" But
oh. We get some gale force winds here. I remember we had a windstorm here. This a few going back a few years, and I literally saw my neighbor's shed fly in the air. It must have made, I don't know, 200 feet in the air, and it landed in a neighbor's yard like 3 yards
wow,
down. Thank God it didn't land on anybody.
right, yeah,
But it hit the ground, and you could hear it just like thunder going off when it hit the ground,
for
right?
sure.
This big tin shed, just like a big kite. Yeah, so we were talking before the show about all the things that you multitask to do.
Hmm.
And as a producer, you can end up wearing a ton of hats.
Indeed, yes, yeah. Like I say, it's you're obviously going from being the engineer and being the technical guy, turning the knobs, plugging in the mics, doing all that side of things, being the producer, saying, hey, this part seems really long or drawn out, or, going to that, the D chord seems odd right before the chorus. What if you change that? Like,
Right.
being kind of the musical mind, giving those suggestions to, playing parts. So now suddenly you're the musician to, you know, the one thing that they never, like, when I went to OER in 304. Like the one thing they never really talked about was like you kind of got to be a therapist too. Like you've got to be right because you're dealing with artists, and artists are
Yep.
a whole other breed of people. Um, so it's you're learning really quick.
Cats. They're cats.
There's something.
They're cat.
Um,
They're cats. You can't hurt them.
well, yeah, yeah, it depends on the person. And like, actually, funny enough, like, remember years ago, I worked with this kind of like metal band. 'Cause there was a bunch of years where I was doing a lot of metal stuff, and the this band from I think it was Kitchener heard some of my stuff, messaged me on Facebook. We had a quick little chat, and they kind of sent me a demo. And great. Well, a couple weeks later, 6 guys I'd never met show up to my place, and here we are doing a track. And you learn really quickly. It's like, okay, that guy's the dad, that guy's the quiet shy guy. That guy, you start picking out who the
You're
personality.
psychoanalyzing
Oh,
people.
100%. Because certain guys, you can be, man, no, that part kind of, that riff kind of sucks. Like maybe we
You're,
should come up with.
you're psychoanalyzing
Oh,
people.
yeah, but you have to because some guys, if you say, yeah, man, that part's not really that great, oh, and suddenly you're done, and they'll shut down. Or
Yeah.
other guy, and some guy you realize, okay, this guy is kind of like me, or this guy, so you can kind of know how to push them and how to get because again,
So,
as the
so
producer, you're trying to get the best out of each
right.
guy.
So do you like producing, wearing all those other hats, or do you like to work with a co-producer that would help work with the attitude and all that stuff?
Like I to me, I just like working on great songs, right? And
Right.
I'm not really genre specific. I've done the spread, right? Like I'm a guitar player, so I love big rock guitars. Like I'm a rock guy at heart,
Right.
right? Was a Nirvana kid and that, morphed. But so I love big rock guitars, but like I've been working the past bunch of years with a country artist, Olivia Mae Graham, who's kind of out at a Tilsonburg area. She was just up for Breakthrough Artist of the Year at the CMAOs this year, which was awesome. With that project, there's her kind of co-writer and co-producer Jay Allen. So in that case, there's kind of another guy that's there, and I get to
Right.
put in my input. He's got his input, and we kind of like tag team the project. But generally, I'm kind of the ones steering the ship. Um, and it varies kind of on different projects, but a lot of the time, especially in the last bunch of years, it's generally, hey, I heard what you did with this band. I want that, so they come to me because of, what I've done or whatnot. Um,
So doing that, do you think working solo like that on those projects gives you a whole lot more latitude to sort of shape what happens? At,
for sure. Like, obviously, you know, I, like I said, the goal is to get the best out of a band. And generally you can tell what a band's going for, right? And what they're trying to achieve. And, usually, it's, I try to have, a good talk with the band before, like say, what's the goal? Like what,
right.
well, it's usually that, like, what are you expecting? Like, what do you want to have done by the time we're done? Right.
Right.
Um, and try to get that out of them.
So do you find so are you running a bit of a focus group with the band when you're doing that?
100%. Like I'll usually, it's if it's a meeting at the studio or if we're doing like a Zoom call or whatever, kind of depending where the band's based.
Right.
And nowadays because everyone with the laptop has a studio, like more and more bands are doing better demos.
Right.
Um, and a lot of work nowadays too is like a band will put together a decent demo, and then the production can very much be kind of replace as you go, right? So
Right.
I take the demo and import it, and then can do some arrangement, pre-production off of it, saying, yeah, this section's too long, let's cut this section out. Or
Right.
it'd be cooler if we actually put the bridge over here and did, I can just kind of move things around. Like I very much look at Pro Tools and things like Lego, right? Or audio is Lego. Like I know I need this block and I need this block, and so I can cut things up, move it around. And then when it comes to doing the actual recording, well, we'll mute the program drums they used on the demo and
Right.
set up and record the drums to that. And it depends. Like obviously, it all depends. It depends on the the
Right.
vibe you're going for. If the
Have you
band wants the live thing,
have
or
you have you ever run into that situation where it's like there's just no pleasing them?
it's happened. I've had some people that, I'll say, hey, so here's the mix. Discuss it with the band, and kind of compile your notes, and then just send me one concise, like, verse guitar up, more vocal effect, or guitar solo down, or just like, it doesn't need to be long, just point form, right?
Right. Right.
And just one concise, rather than the bass player, hey man, this, and then you're getting like four or five different guys messaging you about things, and this
Right.
guy, hey, the bass is too loud, hey, can you turn my bass up? Like,
Right.
no, you guys deliberate and come to me with a concise thing.
So here's the rule we have when we mix. So all my bandmates co-produce with me,
Mm-hmm.
right? So one of the things that we do is we'll we have this sort of focus group while we're listening back to the tracks, and you cannot say anything about your own instrument.
I've heard that one before.
It
Yeah.
works. It works
Yeah.
because you're paying attention to the rest of the mix, right?
Yeah, like 100%. Like, everyone's always going to focus on themselves more, right?
Right.
Which is great. And like that,
Right.
and that's also, I because of that, is why I always tell bands to record themselves, like, even if it's just like, the phone in the jam room, because
Right.
it said, like, it's happened so many times over the years. There's nothing worse than being in the studio and you're recording guitar and the drummer goes, "Wait, that's what you're playing?" Like, and it's like, oh, like, it's like, oh, I thought you were playing 16th notes there,
Now I
and
can
then,
play some notes with you now.
well, yeah, but like, especially, like, more metal things or whatever, where you get more
Right.
intricate kind of kick patterns. It's
Right.
like one guy's playing triplets, the other guy's playing 16th notes, right? So those don't lock, right? But it's when they're loud in the room, they're each guy's, like I said, you're hearing what the other guy's playing, but you're not listening to what the other guy's playing. And
Right.
there's a big difference.
Right.
So I said, if you can record and now step back, and I said, no matter what, like, part of your brain function, as much as it's muscle memory to play your parts, part of your brain function's still playing, right?
That's right.
So, and then when you don't play and you just sit back and listen, you can, like, give all of your attention to what you're playing, right? Or
Yeah.
sorry, like, to what you're hearing, and to analyze, like, what the other guys are playing. And hey, man, what if you made that this or that, or we could lock, or blah 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 blah. So, like I said, those infamous times, it's like, wait, that's how you're playing it, or that's what you're playing. It's like, oh, boys, like,
We got
you
some
know,
more
it,
people in the chat room saying, "Hey, I gotta interrupt for a second." Mattias Jacqueline says, "Cheers, guys." Do you know that name?
I do, yes, yeah,
Okay. And this one here, Tommy Breyer.
yes.
That's a nice shirt.
Yes, Tommy is the lead singer of No Exceptions, so he's referring to my shirt. So I just finished an EP with those guys, and that's something that I'm really, really pumped about, is this new EP with these guys.
Ben
Um,
York says it's all about the bass.
yes, I played in a band with Ben years ago, so yeah, of course Ben would say the bass is never loud and never too loud. So
Red
yeah,
D Film, that's Brent Durner.
okay, yeah,
And of course, Ben is agreeing with what we're saying 100%.
100%,
So
yeah,
really, it's really cool that when people go to the chat room and they put stuff up there to talk about, what we're doing. The one thing I find about when we record our sessions, every session gets recorded live.
right,
And so we listen to it back. So we record for 90 minutes,
mhm,
listen for 90 minutes.
right,
And I inevitably, somebody go, "Oh, I should do this. Oh, I should do this."
right.
You're hearing new things when you get to listen to it back
Well,
and you go,
that's exactly it.
"Yeah." And so a song that we start out with, I can go back, till we're finally ready to release that song, and I can go back on all the old sessions, and you hear how rudimentary it started.
Hmm.
And then you look at all the layers you put on it as
Right.
as you learn different things or heard different things. And you know and it's weird because our drummer is one of those guys, he'll pick up on everybody's notes,
Mhm.
right? He'll like something that the lead guitarist is doing, then he'll play to that, or he'll like something the bass guitarist is doing and he'll play to that, or he likes an accent that I'm using and he'll play accents to that. It's really
Right.
interesting how you learn that stuff, but you can't immediately have that in your head.
Mhm. I hear
Yeah. So you won some awards for your
you.
music
I have.
production. Uh you're going to tell us what those awards are?
I can. So in I guess 2016, um, I won the Jack Richardson Producer of the Year award um, for. I'm trying to remember which year. Like I was lucky enough to win it twice. I'm trying to remember which
And
was
that's the
which year.
Forest City Music Awards, right?
The previously when it was the Jack Richardson Music Awards.
Right.
And yeah, which was kind of cool because at the time, the way that award worked, it wasn't just online. Hey, vote for me, right? And all your friends and family vote.
Oh, my camera's
It was there was a panel of Juno Award winners and Grammy Award winners that were put together, and all the submissions were blindly submitted. So it wasn't Aaron Murray, it was engineer one, song two. And they
right.
were sent out, and all the panel just kind of listened and went, that one. So I won, which was kind of cool. And actually, I think that was actually for the first No Exceptions EP, which was kind of cool. Um, and then the next year I got to present the award as the winner, and I presented it to Rob Nation, who was one of first guys to hire me back in the day. So that was kind of cool. And then the following year, 2018, I won again for was them Dang Rattlers, which are kind of a country rock thing, and yeah, so that was kind of cool, and it was through that I got to know Garth Richardson, obviously Jack's son, a bit, which is kind of neat. The first year they kind of him and Dan Broadbeck, who's my mentor, they pulled a prank on me because I guess they said that Jack was always so focused on music, he wouldn't notice if he slopped mustard on his shirt when he went out for lunch and he'd come back. So they conveniently covered themselves with mustard when they came out to present the awards. So when I came up, they hugged me with my nice black dress shirt at the award show. So now suddenly, here's my award, but I'm now covered in mustard. So my gag back at them the following or 2 years later was just in case I won, I had a green garbage bag in my pocket so that I pulled it out and put that over my shirt when I went up to receive my award the second time. Funny enough, I just wanted to win the award so I could do the gag. It's like winning the award was cool, but to me, it was like I wanted to just do that because it was kind of hilarious. And they both howled at it and whatever. So that
That's
was
great.
yeah.
Shane says that's a cool way to do the awards. No names, just listen and pick the one that's deserving.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if it's still kind of done that way. I think things changed, because like I said, Dan Broadbeck, he chaired that category at the time. So Dan, again,
Right.
reached out to industry peers and whatever, and put
Sure.
it together. So he kind of did it. And so to me, it I kind of, I don't want to say it meant more, but it was kind of cooler because yes, there are a lot of words where it's like, hey, I won best rock band because 4,000 of my friends voted every day on Facebook. So it's like, yeah, that's cool. You're being acknowledged. But for me, it was kind of a neat thing to go like, there's no name. So even, it's not like, yeah, I'm going to vote for that guy because I know, like, it sounds good, but I know him. It's
Right.
just like, it was kind of a blind thing. So to me, it kind of meant more.
Right.
Right.
Most well-known artists you produced for.
A couple years ago, I got this call about this artist or Ryan that owns Charterhouse here. He got this call when the Junos were happening. We got this artist needs to come in and do a demo, and we're like, okay. And then it was just these demands, and we're like, what's going on? Like, and then okay, who is this for? And it was just back and forth, and it was really vague. And then it was like, okay, well, it's Corey Hart, and it was like, oh, okay, cool. So suddenly Corey Hart was coming into demo, and he came in with two guitar players, three backup singers, and I set up. And hilarious because it was during the Juno Fest, and of course the city had a whole bunch of stuff happening
Right.
that week. So Noxious was booked for a gig at East Sides that night, the same night. So I had a guy that had assisted me, and I was very confident if I had to leave early, which is insane because I'm recording Corey Hart, but it was confident if things were up and running, at least if he kept, because originally it was a demo, so I didn't know what was happening. If I figured if at least everything was dialed in, I knew that Liam would be able to keep creating more tracks and at least keep things going. But we set up. He did one take. Let's do a take to do get a sound check. Okay, great. Like, oh, can I have more reverb? Yep. No, that's too much. Okay, yep. Okay, great. Now let's try one. I held my breath for 3 minutes because I didn't want to be the guy to say, "Sorry, Corey, Pro Tools crashed" or whatever. And got to the end. That's it. That's the one. So he effectively did one take, and then he come in. I love it. Mix it. It's going on my album.
Oh, wow.
Oh, cool. That album you just released with Bob Ezrin producing. That's kind of cool. So, yeah. So
he did just the one track with you.
He did the one take. He did like a sound check take.
Right.
The next take, and it was live. And then, as we listened back, he said, "Oh, you guys didn't do the ooze in the chorus. Just go in and punch that in." So the backup singers went in and did the ooh or whatever it was under the chorus or the bridge or something. And
right.
We'll double it while you're in there. I love it. I love it. That's it. I love it. Perfect. Bye. And he left. And it was kind of cool because it was the night before he got his Hall of Fame induction. So he was wearing his little gold Juno lanyard. So when he came in, it was, Corey, nice to meet you, whatever. Congrats on the Juno, the Hall of Fame. He's like, "Oh, are you coming to the show?" And I said, "Well, unfortunately, no." He's like, well, here. And he takes his lanyard off and puts it around me to take his photo. And I was like, "Cool, here." And he's like, "You keep that." So I actually have Corey Hart's gold Hall of Fame lanyard hanging up next to my other awards and stuff, which is kind of cool. Yeah, that was a pretty crazy experience to just have a guy like that's sold like 16 million records or something, like just some crazy thing. Just walk in, do one take, and and I get to say I actually tuned, I think, one word on the end of the song because the take was just like unbelievable, but because the whole thing was so great, there was one little word, the littlest brush stroke and whatever, and he loved it, and it went on. I think it was the Japanese release of that. Was it Dreaming or what's that? The new, yeah, whatever. I'm trying to remember what the record's called. Dreaming Time's Over or yeah, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. But it was the Japanese release, and it was because they always want extra bonus tracks on the international releases and whatnot.
Right.
Dreaming Time Again, I think it is what it.
Yeah, I got to see Corey inducted into the Canadian Music Hall of Fame at the Junos. I was live at the Junos.
Right.
In 2019 when they were in London, and it was great. I had like really close up seats, at the Junos, and then I got to hang out with Jim Cuddy afterwards. It was a really chill evening. It was kind of fun because I didn't know if I was going to end up seeing anybody after the show.
Right. Yeah.
And then somebody, I don't know, I met somebody from, I think one of the Juno sponsors, and they were going up to an after party.
Right.
They said, "Come on with me. We're going to this after party." I'm like, "Okay."
Cool.
And next thing I know, pretty well everybody that was at the Junos was there.
Of course. Yeah.
I looked for Corey. I didn't see him there. I didn't see him there, but Jim Cuddy and I had a really interesting conversation. It was, it was weird. He came up to me and just started chatting with me.
Right on.
So it was kind of neat talking to somebody that I'd never met before, and very interesting guy, very, very pleasant.
Right on. Yeah.
So you grew up in London?
I grew up in Belmont, so
okay, not far,
just outside of town. So, but yeah, effectively, coming into London was part of our lives all the time. So London. As far as most people, if I say Belmont, they're like, "Where?" It's like right. So, but yeah, so small town kind of thing, growing up and whatnot, playing in the garage, and
so Dan Broadbeck was your your mentor?
Yeah, I worked. I co-opted in high school. I co-opted at Matt's Music for RB, which was Dan's dad,
Right.
Rick Broadbeck. So I worked there, and I worked. One of the other guys I worked with was Siegfried Meyer, who used to work at the store.
Right.
So I got to know Siggy and things, and then um, Siggy ended up getting an assistant gig at EMAC here in town. So I used to go up and just assist and hang out and just hang out at the studio, right, as much as I could.
I met him and his girlfriend a couple of years ago. Interesting dude. We were chatting on Facebook. Same thing, right? And I said, "Oh, a buddy of mine and I are going for a motorcycle ride today up to Godrich. Do you mind if we pop in?"
Mhm.
He goes, "No, not at all."
Yeah.
So we go up them, and him and Harley are there, and um, my buddy sits and they're chatting out in the kitchen, and then Ziggy takes me on this tour of the studio.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
I helped him. I was at Beach Road the first day there was a light bulb that worked. That I helped him disassemble his vocal booth. He used to live in an apartment on like Dundas and Adelaide, and I helped him built like it's still the vocal booth. I think it's at Beach Road, but it was in his apartment so that he could record when he
Oh,
lived
I
in
didn't
the
know the
apartment.
history behind that.
Yeah, so I helped him disassemble it and take it up there. And the day we dropped it off was the first day there was finally power at Beach Road, and the building was not it was not the studio at all. Like I said, framed, and there was just hydro
So
at the
you as
point.
much are you a gearhead like him?
Uh, yeah, not the same. Not the same. Like obviously, he's got the crazy collection of
Oh
gear
my God, he's
and
got so
whatnot.
much gear in that place. I mean, I don't know. Some of it I know he doesn't use, but it's definitely has museum quality.
Yeah, like you have one of everything kind of thing, and like I think a lot of Siggy says is if something does one thing right, that's
Right,
kind of cool, right? If it's some multi effects processor and most of it's kind of blah, but it has one effect that's cool, then you'll keep it, right? Because then it
right.
does that one thing, and or
That's that one
having
thing.
having all the different tape machines or hard disk machines and all those. Well, now if you're the guy that has a DA88, well then, hey, I've got DA88. Can someone transfer? Well, he's the guy that can do all those
Right,
transfers, right?
right.
So, yeah.
What kind of console do you use there for mixing?
Here it's all just fader controllers, so there's no actual analog console. So they're all just the Euphonics, like the original Euphonics MC controls, which are Avid just rebranded to or it's the artist control and the artist mix. So if the artist controls in the middle and has the touch screen, and then the the 8 fader version is the MC mix. Um, so yeah, there's four banks of 8, and then the control has 4 channels on it. Um, so yeah, lots of faders. And realistic, when designed this desk, I was like, we don't need that many. But Ron Schroins, the owner of the PA shop and everything, no, we need more faders, more faders, more faders. I'm like, dude, that's what the bank button's for, right? You just
Right,
click, and I don't need to reach all the way to the end. I can just hit the button and that fader comes to me.
right,
But yeah, so it's all just just controller for Pro Tools, so there's no actual audio going through it.
right. So you're not using an SLR then?
An SSL, you mean?
SSL,
Yeah,
sorry.
no console here. Everything's just outboard mic pre's, and then so there's a good selection. So like here, there's 12 channels of Intec, and there's a bunch of Focusrite, Great River, Jim Hardy's, neat stuff, Universal Audio,
So
Avalon.
you're using different interfaces?
Interfaces here, it's a pair of Apollo 16s. So there's 32 I/O, and
Right,
then it's just outboard mic pre's, like higher end mic pre's, and then so lots of different flavors on the way in, and
right.
then everything's there's a benchmark DAC, so a higher end um, digital audio converter on the way out, and yeah.
Yeah, it's funny how some guys are like what you're doing, and there's other guys who are like SSLs. Like
Well,
they
like
even they even rebuild them.
Oh, 100%. Like SSLs are SSLs. Like they're amazing, but SSLs are big. They take up a lot of space. They take like for the most part take a lot of hydro. Now you need another room to put the power supplies, to put the automation computers, all of that. We've had a guy a couple of years ago offer us a Neve, I think it was an 88R,
Right.
and he was just going to put it in here. He's like, "Yeah, well, you guys got a space; it would hold this console, and we'll just put it in your room, and then, whenever you do a session or a mix on it, you can just pay me." He had it as a gear broker, and we kind of talked it over, and it was just like, that's rad. And that's cool to have all those channels of SSL, or I'm sorry, in this case it was Neve. So
Right.
if it was 32 channels, well, having 32 mic pre's and 32 EQs and comps and whatever. But we sat down and looked at it. Well, now suddenly all our outboard gear needs to go somewhere because where the desk is in this room.
Right.
Suddenly, well, that's got to be displaced. So you've got all your patch bays, all the outboard gear. Well, that has to go somewhere else. So now there's racks somewhere, which the control room here, it's an okay size room, but it's not a huge room, right? So all of a sudden, it's going to change the flow of the room, and at the end of the day, we're like, and I had a buddy I talked to he's spent his life kind of building studios all over the world,
Right.
and he said, like, before you got the phone call about the console, did the studio work? And I went, yeah. Was
Yeah.
there an issue with it? I was like, well, no, not really. And he's like, then don't worry about it.
It ain't broke, don't fix it.
Kind of, and that was kind of the thought, because it's like, yeah, that'd be cool to have, having an even here, but like, it was one of those things that there's pros and cons to it, right? So a big console gives off a lot of heat. So now suddenly you got to look at your AC, your bill for your AC, because now you're cranking the AC even in the middle of the winter because the console is just this giant heater, and it's just all of those things that it's like, consoles are amazing, and I've worked on different consoles over the years, but end of the day, it's also another big thing to maintain and whatnot. Right. So
I didn't realize that those boards put off so much heat. Amazing.
They definitely do. Yeah.
Amazing. So I mean, so these places that have these great big massive boards, they've got to have some way to cool them. And do those boards require like a conditioned power system?
They don't. I don't think they necessarily require it, but obviously, working, like, I know Siggy, for instance, like, he just bought an SSL recently, like, and
Right.
and with it, he went and we were chatting about it, and he was saying that he went and got a new modern power supply for it, which he said it's made the console exponentially quieter, and I think just the footprint of it is that much smaller, and so, and also because of that, it's going to be that much cooler, right?
Now,
but the console itself is still going to, if it's however long, 10 feet long, and you've got all those channels, they do produce heat. Right?
We use vintage tube amps here in the studio, and we started running power conditioners on them.
Mm-hmm.
And what a difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of white noise gone.
Yeah.
Right? Even some of the 60 cycle hum is kind of
yeah. Now if you take power conditioning, but then you even go farther and you do something like balanced power, and it's that much better again. Right?
It's just cleaner.
100%. The power is the one thing that so many people just take for granted, and they just say, well, yeah, it's the the holes on the wall, right? It's like, well, that's the outlet, but what's coming out of the outlet is from building to building, and obviously for touring bands, it's always one of those things. It's like, well, yeah, my Marshall sounded great last night, but I come venue tonight and it sounds like shit. It's like, oh, I put a voltmeter on it. Yeah, 102 volts coming out of the wall. It's like, well, that's why.
Have you ever seen the number of power conditioners that Angus Young has on his rig?
You see, those are balanced.
Yeah, they're
right? So
crazy. Those
yeah,
are expensive too, though. Those are thousands of dollars for
yeah.
those things.
And yeah, because those are regulators, though. Like they regulate. So
Yep.
you dial in. I want exactly. You know. They'll have done the tests. Well, my amp sounds the best at 116.5 volts or
Yep.
whatever, right?
Yep.
So no matter where they go,
Yep.
it always outputs the.
Eddie Van Halen, 98 volts,
Yeah, exactly. It's they found they
and then crank it to 11, right?
right. No, exactly. It's finding because it does. It all makes a difference, right? So
And he claimed that the Variac actually made his sound.
100%. It's changing the way the circuitry's working. So it'll definitely, it's definitely going to make a difference.
Yeah. Did you know the story about how he discovered that?
I don't know what the.
I'll,
I know of it, but I don't necessarily know the story of the inception. I guess.
yeah, I'll give you the Coles notes on it. So he's over in the UK, buys a brand new Marshall lead head,
Right.
right? It's 220 volts,
Right.
right? He brings it home, plugs it into 110, doesn't realize it's 220 volts,
Right.
right? He cranks it as loud as it'll go, and it's really quiet, but it's got the sound he wants.
Right.
That's how we learn. Starve the amplifier for voltage. You can crank it out and get the sound you want. And then he just
Right.
dial in the voltage on the amp once he had it cranked where he wanted it.
Right. Makes
So I
sense.
think, and he even went so far as to talk about different songs he recorded in the studio. One would be at 98 volts, another one would be at 99.
Right.
Another one would be at 101. He would vary the voltage on the amplifier to give him the sound for different songs.
100%. Well, you're going to turn the gain knob or the volume knob
Yeah.
for a different song. Well, this is an external knob, right? And because most guys, again, you just plug it into the wall and turn it on, and well, I'm going to turn my bass, my treble, my volume, my
Yep.
gain, and that's how I get my sound. Well, that's it's that extension of that external, I guess, control. I
It
guess.
it gives you way more external control than an actuator does.
Hmm.
Right, and like an actuator knob on a stereo, like on a speaker, where you can actually turn down the volume on the speaker but crank the amp.
Yeah,
Right.
it's a different thing. It's yeah, like a hot plate or a power attenuator. Yeah, like it's gonna give you it's different. They're different places because yeah,
It puts more of a resistance load on the speaker,
right,
but the other way around, you get the full resistance. Like it's like, I don't know. To me, an actuator is like taking a garden hose and putting it down to a pea shooter.
right.
Whereas using a Variac, you're allowed to keep the hose wide open, just at a
Yeah,
different
you're just
voltage.
changing the pressure. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Kind of a cool concept. I mean, and it's interesting how people discover those things along the way. Ha- have you discovered any little tricks that, and you don't have to divulge any of them, but have you discovered tricks along the way that you take with you from production to production?
Oh, it's just doing the job, right? Like you always learn different things, and you know, um, like something I always say, like it's the battle of budgets and things nowadays, right? And
Right.
if guys like, hey, we want to do something, how much, and you discuss, and you give them a price. Oh, but my buddy's got Pro Tools in his basement, and he'll do it for $100 a song. It's like, okay, well, there's a reason your buddy does it for $100 a song, right? And I always say, like, one of those things. It's like, tune your guitar. I just tuned it. Or tune your guitar, man. I just tuned. I said, check your tuning. Oh, I'm all sharp. Yeah, the air conditioner just came on,
That's right.
right? Oh, shit, how did you know? I'm like, well, I felt the AC come on, so I know that the cold air just blew on your strings, which means the string tension is going to tighten, which means it's going to go sharp,
Oh, I've seen
right?
mine go almost a half step sharp when the AC's on in here.
Yeah. And it's those things you just, you learn, and again, like, those one, I guess, say if it's a tip or a trick, but it's like as you go, you just learn one more little thing and whatever, and you just keep applying it and applying it. Like I've known a band I worked with, James Blonde. They said one of it's something I never really necessarily tried in the past specifically, but he said, well, another producer they'd worked with, his whole thing was you never put your guitar at 10. his whole thing was you turn the knob down, the volume knob on your guitar down to like 9, and always, so it's always just below full. And because it was something he's found, that the way it, I don't know, the resistance on the pickups or whatever, but
Right.
that was part of his thing. So, we were making that James Bond record, that's something Stephanie, would you ever do that? And I was like, not specifically. And we tested it, and like, yeah, it does change the tone slightly. So on, I forget how many tracks we tried that, and it worked.
Right.
Right. And like, I'm very much of the mindset when it comes, especially guitar players, because now in the world of, there's tube amps, and then there's, modelers or Kempers or Axe Effects or amp sims in the computer or whatever. You get some guys, oh, I'm not using a pod, or I'm not using a this, or, whatever. And it's just like I say, I don't give a shit how we get there, as long as we hit play and what comes out of the computer or out of the speakers sounds good. I don't give a shit. If it's
Right.
programmed drums, if it's an electronic kit that triggers samples so a guy actually played it, or if it's a real drum kit, or it's, all real amps live off the floor, or I said, I don't care, as long as we go play and people go, yeah, that sounds awesome.
That
Great,
sounds
done.
great.
That's all that matters. It doesn't.
Yep.
It's like, well, that sounds awesome. Yeah, but it's a Kemper, so I want to redo all my tracks. It's like, yeah, but who cares? It sounds great,
Yeah.
right? And
What do you I want to hear about your most bizarre session ever.
most biz,
Okay. Think
huh?
about that. Think about your most bizarre session ever. And then I also want to talk about ear fatigue.
Okay.
How do you
Um.
deal with that? How do you deal with ear fatigue?
Uh. Like a lot of the time, like a studio day, a lot of the time, like here a day rate is 10 hours, but realistically, it ends up being about 12. Um. And I'm, like I say, like I'm not a, and it's 10, so we cut and you're halfway through your guitar solo. It's like, no, we're gonna, like, I'm very much of, we're, in the middle of the guitar solo, or we're in the
Right.
middle of working on this part, we're gonna finish off where we're at, unless it's like, you're getting to that point where everyone's delirious and it just ain't working, like.
Right.
But I'm not gonna like chop us off in the middle, because once you hit flow state, that's like the best to me, is like the drug, right? When you just hit that
Right.
and everything's just flowing. Oh, I got this idea, and you can just plug in and just go, and things are creative and
Right.
happening, right?
When you feel like your ears need a rest
But
from what you're
but
doing.
but that there's that. Like, so realistically, yeah, when you start hitting, like, guitar days are the worst, because you want to just crank the monitors, because you want, guitar, especially if it's like a big rock thing, which a
Right.
lot of what I do is more in that rock world, right?
Right. So
So,
you're trying to get that sound you're after.
well, yeah, and see, I'm very much, I come from the world of, things are very much more overdubbing things. So I'm gonna have the guitar player in the control room with me, right?
Right.
I don't love the idea of a guitar player on the floor with headphones and a little mixer, and he's out there like, the goldfish in the bowl. Like,
Right.
that's not cool. Like, a guitar player sitting in here, but there's also like multiple reasons. I get to like be on him and watch him, like, so I can see he's, oh, dude, you're bending the G string when you're playing that chord, like it's going sharp. Or I can reach over and mute a string when he's playing, and a string keeps ringing open or something when it shouldn't. I can tap a string muted, or but it's just also, guitar players want their amp ripping loud. So to be able to sit in here with the big monitors going and the drums are pounding, and you can have the guitar loud, they're going to get into it and play it better, right?
Right.
And there are times where feedback, yeah, it can be easier to get feedback and right in front of an amp for certain parts. Sure, well, then we can run a line out there and do it. But you can
Right.
also get feedback off your studio monitors. You just crank it up, and even just have the headstock touch the cabinet of the speaker. It'll
Right.
take off. Um, but I like, having a guitar player in the room with me, right?
Right. So let's break this down for someone that's trying to do a decent recording,
Mhm.
maybe maybe in their home studio and they're doing some demos. What
Sure.
would you recommend for someone using as like a tube combo amp for miking? What would you recommend?
SM57. Like
Okay.
it's the 57 is like the most inexpensive mic. Like if in you ask any engineer, if you had one microphone you had to use, like it's like your one meal, your last meal, or you had to eat one meal for the rest of your life, like
Right.
one microphone you'd use on everything, most engineers would say, well, 57.
And
Because
where would you and how would you do microphone placement on that speaker?
generally, like again, it depends on what you're going for, but general rule of thumb, if you start like in the middle on the dust cap or just off center, right? So if you're, the middle on the dust cap, usually I'll start right at the edge of the dust cap where it meets the cone. Again, it depends on the tone. It depends on like the sound.
Right.
There is all those variables, but generally, if you start there, and the more towards the center you go, the brighter it's going to be. The more towards the outside of the cone, the more round off. It's going to round off the tone more. So that shrilly fizziness generally gets rolled off more. If you start turning the mic more off axis, again, you start shaving that top end a bit.
Yeah.
So the rule, like, it's trial and error. Like, you sometimes you just set up and you set up a pair of mics and you turn it on, you go, shit, there's the tone.
Yeah.
Done. Like,
Now would you use more than one microphone on an amp?
usually, but again, if I had only had one mic, you throw a 57 on it, and odds are, like, in generally, even if it is multiple mics, it's usually a 57 and a Sennheiser 421 or like a Royer 121 or something. It's usually like a 57 and something, right?
Right.
It's not to say you have to have 57, but it's just kind of that tried and true mic that's just gonna work,
And that would that be miking it on two different points on the speaker cone
Yeah,
itself?
so usually, again, like the two different mics will say, like, the classic combo being a 57 and a 421. The 57 is going to give you more roar, more bottom. The 421 is more mid-rangey generally, so it's
Right.
kind of like the scoop, and then the one fits in the middle. So
Right.
you can kind of blend the two to get the different characters, right? So
Nice. Very nice.
again, it moving them around in the different places, and moving one back that little bit. Well, now you're going to start getting a little phasing. So generally, like there's no rules, right? There's just a lot of, like I said, there's no rules in audio. There's just a lot of strong-handed suggestions, right?
I like the cool thing about, the guitar player sitting with you, because then, they if they want to really crank the amp and get that characteristic out of the amp, that rip roaring
Yeah,
lead stuff, then that's the cool thing, right? I mean,
yeah,
for
and
them.
it varies. Some guys, no man, I just want to be in front of my amp because I like to feel it and react. And it's like, end of the day, it's what you need, whatever you need to get the best out of you, right?
Right.
But like I said, that's when I'm Mutt Lang is God for me, right? So like all those giant production records that he did, like the Def Leppard records and all those, like to me, those like that's the benchmark. Which is ironic because most of those Def Leppard records were all Rockman anyways. They were all direct,
Right.
but it's still that overdubbing things, and it's not necessarily a band set up in the room all playing together at once, and that's what's kept. It's you make set up and have the band play, and then you just use that as the bed, and then replace the guitars and things as you go. But same thing with bass. Like I'll have bass players sit in here, especially with bass, because you're off headphones, you're not getting bottom end the same way. So to sit in the control room, and I can again be, because there's those little things that guys don't notice, right? It can just be the bad habits that they're muting the high E string when they're supposed to be strumming an E chord or something, or again they're buzzing or they're bending a bit, they don't realize, or they'll do a change, well they're da da na na na, so well no, you're flubbing as you're going to the A chord, so try to work on that. Or if it's some hard change, well I'll just have a guy say just keep playing the A chord, right?
Right.
And
Right.
it's G's underneath it, but just play the A chord and punch in. So he's
So you're
already in
you're
position.
also about helping the artist with their technique.
100%. Well, like I said, the goal is to get the best performance, right? So
Right.
yes, are we cheating? Cheating? Sure. But again, if we press play, what comes out of the speakers, we go, that's awesome. Then who cares?
That's
Right?
right.
Like like, yes, people say, well, yeah, but how are they going to do that live? And I kind of say, well, that's not really my problem.
How they
That's
do
not
it
their
live?
problem.
How
Like,
here's the answer to that. We record all of our stuff live off the floor.
sure,
We don't do
sure,
any dubs. We don't do any overdubs. No punch-ins. Nothing.
yeah,
We just go for the
yeah,
best possible performance. The thing about that is it's just another version,
yeah, no, 100%.
right?
Exactly. And that's so, and again, when, like I said, a lot of the time I get that call, hey, I heard what you did on the No Exceptions
Right,
EP. So, I got a hard rock band and we wanted, so it's like, okay, cool. Well, I know what I did to get the No Exceptions EP. So
right,
odds are I'm not going to now set up and do live off the floor for your band if you want it to sound like No Exceptions. It's like, well,
right.
no, it's like I love tomato soup. Well, then I'm going to put the same kind of ingredients in. Like, obviously, it's a different band, so it's not going to be the same soup, but
Right,
you're going to use the same kind of approach
right.
generally if you want the same kind of result, right?
We're a minute 16 into the first period of overtime, so hard to believe that an hour's gone by.
Go sports.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to believe that an hour's gone by, and I feel like we've barely scratched the surface. I hope you'll agree to come back on the show sometime soon,
Sure, man. Yeah.
because we didn't even get to talk about some of the work that you're doing, with bands like Helix, and of course you did the production on Stand Up.
Yeah.
Uh, that
I did.
song
I
is
did a
is
lot of,
that
actually, on that
song
track,
that song is doing really, really, really well.
which is awesome to
By the
hear.
way, it's doing
Yeah.
really well, and we're actually thinking about doing a video for it.
Cool.
It's too bad that when you guys were doing working on that in the studio that you didn't video any of that parts of those
But,
sessions.
well, honestly, that song was. It was funny how that whole song came to be because it was originally a demo that was because the guitar player, the original guitar player, was in, I think, Florida, and same with the
Yep.
drummer, and so I was kind of sent some stuff, and then stuff was we kind of did a vocal, but then it was to rough tracks, and then tracks got replaced, and then like timing and it whatever, and then we ended up getting guitar tracks back.
Even the
Got
song and the lyrics changed over time because it
Oh
was
yeah,
originally "Death by a Thousand Cuts" or something like that.
yeah, and you talked about the many hats. Like on that one, I produced it, engineered it, mixed it, sang all the backups, played all the guitars but the guitar solo, and um, yeah, so there was a lot
Send
of
me
a lot of hats on that
I
one.
need I need you to send me some of that information because we want to add those to the credits.
Okay, yeah. See, a lot of the times with things like that, like, cause I play on I'm on just about everything I work on. In some, if it's just this song really needs a tambourine when I'm in like the mix, and it's just like the amount of tambourine I've played, or just guitars, and it's like it's different if I end up playing
I'd
all
love
the
to get you
guitar.
and John Fogerty in the same room. There's a guy who likes to produce.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, it's been great having you on the show, Aaron. We're going to have you back sometime soon. Aaron Murray from Charterhouse Studios in London, Ontario. He is an award-winning producer, mixing engineer, jack of all trades, master of none. But you are welcome to look him up on Facebook. Find him wherever he is on social media, and like and follow him. And I think he's always taking on new clients. So if you've got a project for
yeah.
him,
Like I
uh,
always tell artists, send me what you're working on. I want to hear it,
yeah.
even if we
Well,
don't end up working together.
I got to tell you a story after we go offline here. It's 3 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but we'll talk about that shortly. This has been Aaron Murray from Charterhouse Studio.